Welcome to Leading Beyond Limits, the podcast where we explore the extraordinary journeys and insights of remarkable leaders who have pushed the boundaries of what's possible. Your host, Angel Radcliffe, who is a digital transformation leader, author, speaker, and financial educator, will lead each episode and dive deep into the stories, strategies, and philosophies that have empowered these exceptional individuals to lead, inspire, and achieve beyond the ordinary. We're about to embark on a journey of discovery and inspiration, and together, we'll learn what it takes to lead beyond limits. So grab your cape, or at least your favorite coffee mug, because we're about to unravel the extraordinary tales of trailblazers who've turned impossible into I'm possible. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is so good to be back in the studio.
It feels good to be back.
We've really been looking forward to this one. It's a bit of a shift for us. We're looking at a moment, just a single high-pressure leadership moment. It's a really unique angle for us.
It is. Usually we're talking about what a leader should do, the tactics, the actions. But today, it's about how a leader needs to think.
Or maybe how they need to stop thinking. And just see what's actually there.
Exactly. Start seeing.
So let's get right to the heart of it. The scenario is anchored by this one really potent line. It's short, but it carries a ton of weight.
It's designed to stop you in your tracks.
It definitely does. It says the problem isn't the team, the problem is in the mirror.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
We've all been in that room though, right?
Right.
The project's stalling, the numbers are off, something just feels weird with morale, and the instinct, the gut reaction is to look out at the team.
Of course. To say they aren't executing or, they don't get the vision.
But this scenario from the Leading Beyond Limits series, it forces this total pivot. It argues that instinct it's just a symptom.
It frames that blame as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And what's interesting here is that this is aimed at experienced leaders. A novice might blame the team and genuinely not know any better.
Right.
But for that high-stakes decision maker, blaming the team is often a very sophisticated, almost unconscious form of avoidance.
That's a really key distinction. The scenario talks about refining the decision maker's edge. It's like the more senior you get, the better you get at rationalizing your own blind spots.
Exactly. You get smarter at explaining why it's not your fault. The cognitive dissonance is just stronger. You have a history of success, so when you look in the mirror, you expect to see a good leader.
And when the reflection doesn't match that,
the ego just rejects it. It projects that failure outward. And that's what the scenario calls the gray area. There's no textbook solution there, just the discomfort of radical honesty.
Okay, let's dig into that discomfort. The text says real leadership here requires acknowledging where ego, fear, or bias is getting in the way. These aren't just buzzwords, are they?
Not at all. They are the invisible architects of the very problems we're seeing in our teams.
Give me an example. What does bias look like in this context?
Well, we often think of bias in terms of prejudice, but here it's often a competence bias. So a leader might believe that their way of working, maybe it's high intensity, always on, is the only way to get things done.
And when the team burns out?
The leader's bias sees that as laziness or a lack of commitment. They can't see their own part in it.
So the problem looks like a lazy team, but the mirror shows a leader who doesn't know how to set a sustainable pace.
Precisely. The external chaos is just a reflection of an internal lack of discipline. There's a quote in this scenario that's, it's pretty piercing.
I just need another one.
You cannot change a culture you are unwilling to examine within yourself first.
Yeah, that one hits hard. This idea of culture as a reflection. I was looking at the notes on The Architect of Conviction, and it says, leadership isn't a title, it's the way you decide. So if you decide from a place of fear, you create a culture of fear.
And if you decide from a place of needing to control everything, you create a culture of dependency. This is where the mirror is so critical. If I look at my team and they seem paralyzed, they won't make a move without my sign-off.
I can complain that they lack initiative.
You can. Or you could look in the mirror and ask the harder question. Where have I in the past punished them for being wrong?
That is the harder question.
It's the only one that actually matters. Because if you answer that honestly, you realize their paralysis isn't their flaw. You created it. You actually trained them to be that way.
Okay, so this gets us to the psychology of why we don't do this. Intellectually, we all get responsibility. Any leader listening would say, of course I'm responsible. But that gap between knowing it and doing it in a crisis is huge.
It is. It boils down to identity preservation.
What do you mean by that?
The scenario talks about these being high-stakes decisions. In those moments, our brains are wired for safety. And for a leader, safety often means being right.
So to look in the mirror and admit you're the problem is to voluntarily make yourself wrong.
Which feels incredibly dangerous. It feels like a loss of authority.
It does, yeah.
But the scenario argues it's the opposite, that the willingness to dismantle your own ego is the source of your true authority. The initial feeling, though, is just pure risk. You're exposing a vulnerability you've spent a career learning to hide.
I want to touch on the hesitation part the scenario brings up. It says there's no room for hesitation, but that's what happens. We freeze, and we usually tell ourselves we're freezing because we need more information.
The more data trap. So common.
I just need to see the Q3 report before I can really dig into the team dynamics.
But the scenario is very clear on this. In these kinds of moments, the delay is almost never about a lack of information.
That point really struck me. We're obsessed with data-driven decisions. Are we saying data is irrelevant here?
Not irrelevant, but it's often used as a stalling tactic. You don't need a spreadsheet to know that trust has eroded on your team. You feel it. You see it in the silence in meetings.
So why do we ask for the spreadsheet?
To buy time, to delay that uncomfortable confrontation with ourselves. It's a way to turn an emotional problem into an intellectual one. If I can make the trust issue a metric issue, then I can manage it.
But looking in the mirror isn't a management problem.
It's a courage problem.
Yeah.
The delay, it says, comes from discomfort with three things: risk, accountability, and visibility.
Let's unpack those. Risk. The personal risk, not just the project risk.
Exactly. It's reputational. It's internal.
Right.
If I admit the problem is me, I risk my whole narrative about myself. I risk having to change, and change is metabolically expensive. Our brains hate it.
Okay. And accountability.
If the problem is the team, the solution is external. I can train them or replace them. That's work, but it's work out there. If the problem is me, the accountability is absolute. I can't outsource my own character development.
And that's a heavy thing to pick up on a Tuesday morning.
Right. And then you have visibility. The work is internal, but the changes have to be external. You have to eventually communicate, hey, I got this wrong. That visibility is terrifying for a lot of leaders. We confuse leadership with being invulnerable.
This all leads to that idea of partial clarity. The scenario says we often have to act without incomplete certainty. We want a guarantee that if we change, the team will get better.
And you never get that guarantee. That's the whole point of the gray area. You might be 70% sure your micromanagement is the issue, but there's still a 30% chance the team really does lack a certain skill. You have to act on the 70%.
That's horrifying for a perfectionist.
It is. But waiting for 100% certainty? That's just a mask for fear. An architect of conviction isn't someone who waits for the fog to clear. It's someone who learns to navigate in the fog.
They rely on judgment and presence, not a checklist. Presence is an interesting choice of word there. It sounds softer than strategy.
It's much harder than strategy. Presence means being fully aware of the reality of the moment, and that includes your own emotional state. It means noticing, okay, I'm feeling defensive right now, and then choosing not to act from that place. That takes incredible discipline.
This feels like a good transition to a concept in the notes that I think is so crucial, the idea of unlearning.
Yes. This is often the missing piece.
The scenario asks this question. What is one leadership habit you've had to unlearn to get to where you are today? Why is unlearning so important?
Because we focus so much on learning new skills. But as you get more senior, the things holding you back are almost always the habits that once made you successful.
The scenario gives the example of the hero habit, the person who always saves the day.
The classic fixer. Early in your career, being the fixer gets you promoted. You're the one who stays late, you rewrite the code, you personally close the deal. You're the safety net.
But when you're leading a big team, being the safety net is a total disaster.
It's fatal. If you keep fixing everything, you rob your team of the struggle they need to actually grow. You become the bottleneck. So looking in the mirror means realizing my desire to help is actually hurting them. You have to unlearn the dopamine rush of being the hero.
What are other habits? I'm thinking of the peacemaker.
Oh, that's a huge one. So many leaders get there because they're great at building consensus. They're diplomatic. But in these high-stakes moments, consensus is often impossible. If you are addicted to harmony, you will avoid necessary conflict.
So the mirror reveals that what you called kindness was actually cowardice.
That's a harsh way to put it, but
Yeah.
fundamentally, yes. It reveals you're prioritizing your own comfort over the needs of the mission. You have to unlearn the need to be liked so you can learn how to be respected.
This process of unlearning, it sounds active. It's not a one-time thing.
It's a continuous process of subtraction. Refining that decision-maker's edge isn't about adding more tools to your belt. It's about sharpening the blade by removing the rust. And you can only see the rust if you're willing to look in the mirror.
So we've talked about the what, the mirror, the unlearning. I want to circle back to the how of the decision itself. The scenario mentions judgment, presence, and self-trust. How do you cultivate self-trust when you know you have all these biases? It feels like a paradox.
That is the central paradox, isn't it? You can't trust your automatic reactions. That's the ego. But you have to learn to trust your examined judgment.
And how do you do that?
Self-trust comes from the practice of the pause. The pressure hits. The automatic reaction is blame the team. The examined judgment is the pause, the breath, the look in the mirror, and then the decision.
So the trust isn't in, I'm always right. The trust is in, I'm willing to do the work to see this clearly.
Exactly that. And I'm willing to own the outcome no matter what. That's where real confidence comes from. Not the arrogance of certainty, but the confidence of accountability.
Because if you're willing to own the mistake, the fear of making one becomes manageable.
Right. The terror of being wrong usually comes from the fear of being exposed. If you've already exposed yourself to yourself in the mirror, you have nothing left to hide. You become fearless. Not reckless, but fearless.
It's a heavy realization. It really changes the job description from manager of people to, I don't know, student of self.
It does. And that's why it's so rare. It's so much easier to read a book on motivating your team than it is to sit quietly and ask, why do I need to be the smartest person in every meeting?
You know, we've covered a lot of psychological ground. The temptation usually is to wrap this up nicely, to say, okay, here are your 3 takeaways. But that just feels wrong for this.
It would be reductive. You can't turn radical honesty into a checklist. It's a posture, not a process.
So we're not going to give you key takeaways today. There are no bullet points.
No. I think the real invitation here is just to sit with the tension we've described. If you're facing a block, if a project is stuck, just resist the urge to immediately try and fix it, just for an hour.
And instead of fixing.
Instead, look at the mirror of radical leadership. Ask that uncomfortable question. What is my role in this? What habit am I holding on to that's causing this? And don't rush to an answer. Just let the question sit there.
It's about moving from passively listening to this to actively reflecting on it. And we want to extend that invitation beyond your own thoughts.
Yes, this conversation really needs a community. It's hard work to do in isolation.
So we really encourage you to go to Angel's LinkedIn page. There's a conversation happening right now about this specific scenario. We want you to join in.
Share what you're seeing in the mirror. Or maybe even better, share what you're struggling to unlearn. There's so much power in seeing other leaders admit, yeah, I'm trying to unlearn being the hero. It normalizes the whole struggle.
Makes the mirror a little less intimidating when you realize everyone's looking into one too.
That's the decision maker's edge in action. It's refined in the arena, not in secret.
We're going to leave it there. No big high-energy sign-off today. Just a quiet suggestion to find your own moment of honesty.
Start with the mirror.
Thank you for tuning into another inspiring episode of Leading Beyond Limits. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to hear more from our incredible guests, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us. And if you have a remarkable leader in mind who you'd like to hear on our show or any questions and comments, feel free to reach out to us. You can find our contact information in the show notes. Remember, leadership knows no bounds, and with the right insights and determination, you too can lead beyond limits. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and leading with purpose.